The massive crystal chamber echoed with the sound of Ambassador Crix's claws clicking nervously against his datapad. The Galactic Council's emergency session had been called with unprecedented urgency, and the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, their various forms of communication creating a low hum of anxiety throughout the hall. High Chancellor Vextar, a towering figure from the ancient Archon civilization, raised his 6 arms to call for order. His deep, resonating voice filled the chamber as he spoke through the universal translator system. Council members, we have gathered today to address a matter of extreme gravity. Ambassador Crix of the Zeltharian Empire has requested this emergency session to discuss recent military actions taken against a species known as humans. A collective rustle moved through the chamber. Many species had heard whispers of this new race called humans, but few had paid much attention to what they assumed was just another primitive civilization on the outer rim of known space. The humans had only made first contact with the galactic community 3 years ago, and most considered them insignificant in the grand scheme of interstellar politics. Crix stood slowly, his reptilian features showing clear signs of distress. His normally proud bearing was hunched, and his voice carried an unusual tremor as he began to speak. Honored council members, I come before you today not in triumph, but in complete and utter defeat. The admission sent shockwaves through the assembly. The Zeltharian Empire was known as one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, with a fleet that had conquered dozens of star systems. 3 standard galactic weeks ago, Crix continued, his voice growing quieter with each word, our empire made what we believed would be a simple tactical decision. Intelligence reports suggested that the humans possessed valuable resources and occupied strategic positions near several important trade routes. Our military advisors calculated that a species so young to space travel would offer minimal resistance to our forces. Chancellor Vextar leaned forward in his massive throne-like seat. Ambassador Crix, are you telling this council that the Zeltharian Empire, with its fleet of over 10,000 warships, attacked a species that has barely ventured beyond their home system? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Crix's throat made a clicking sound, a sign of extreme nervousness in his species. Yes, Chancellor. We attacked Earth. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Representatives began talking among themselves, their voices rising in pitch and volume. Some species were known for their aggressive expansion policies, but attacking a species so new to galactic civilization was considered both tactically unnecessary and politically dangerous. It set a precedent that made every species nervous about their own security. Silence! Chancellor Vextar's voice boomed across the chamber, and the noise gradually died down. Ambassador Crix, you will explain to this council exactly what transpired during this military action. Crix's datapad trembled in his claws as he accessed his files. Our initial intelligence suggested that Earth was defended by a small number of primitive vessels. Our scouts reported seeing only a few hundred ships around their homeworld, and their technology appeared to be centuries behind our own. We deployed what we considered an overwhelming force, 3 full battle fleets, comprising nearly 1,500 of our most advanced warships. Representative Cheendal from the Peaceful Harmony Collective spoke up, her melodious voice carrying a note of concern. Surely such a force was excessive for a simple resource acquisition mission? We thought so too, Crix replied, his voice barely above a whisper. Our fleet admiral Garthok was confident that the humans would surrender immediately upon seeing our superior numbers and technology. We transmitted the standard surrender demands, giving them 24 of their time units to comply. The chamber fell silent as every representative waited for Crix to continue. The Zeltharian's breathing had become labored, and several times he seemed to struggle with finding the right words. The humans responded within 2 of their hours, Crix said finally. Their message was brief and came from someone they called Admiral Sarah Chan of the Earth Defense Force. She said, and I quote from our translation systems, "We have received your demands for surrender. We respectfully decline. If you wish to take our world, you are welcome to try." A ripple of surprised murmurs went through the assembly. Most species, when faced with such overwhelming odds, would either surrender immediately or attempt to negotiate. The humans' response was unexpected in its simple defiance. Admiral Garthok was amused by their response, Crix continued. He ordered our fleets to advance to optimal firing positions around Earth. Our plan was simple: disable their defensive installations, destroy their small fleet, and force immediate surrender. We expected the engagement to last no more than a few hours. Chancellor Vextar's expression had grown increasingly serious. Ambassador Crix, I must ask directly, what happened to your fleet? The question seemed to physically pain the Zeltharian representative. He closed his eyes for a long moment before responding. Gone. All of it. 1,500 of our finest warships, destroyed or captured. Nearly 2 million of our best warriors, lost. The silence that followed was deafening. The Zeltharian Empire's military might was legendary throughout the galaxy. Their ships were built with the finest materials, their weapons could crack planets, and their warriors were trained from birth for combat. The idea that a species barely 3 years into galactic contact could defeat such a force was beyond comprehension. That's impossible, declared General Vractoas of the Carnian warlords, his scarred features twisted in disbelief. Your empire has conquered half the outer rim. How could a primitive species destroy such a fleet? Crix's laugh was bitter and hollow. Primitive? General Vractoas, I fear our intelligence was catastrophically wrong. The humans are anything but primitive. He activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber, showing what appeared to be sensor readings from the battle. The data scrolled past in columns of numbers and tactical assessments, but the conclusion was clear: it had been a massacre. When our fleets reached Earth's orbital space, we detected their defensive grid for the first time. What our scouts had identified as a few hundred simple vessels were actually something else entirely. The humans had somehow concealed the true nature of their defenses until we were already committed to the attack. The hologram shifted to show a tactical map of Earth's solar system. Red dots indicated the positions of Zeltharian fleets, while blue dots showed human positions. At first glance, it appeared to confirm the intelligence reports. The humans were vastly outnumbered. Admiral Garthok ordered the attack to begin at exactly 1400 hours, standard galactic time. Our first wave consisted of 300 heavy cruisers and 2 dreadnought-class vessels. They moved into attack formation and opened fire on the nearest human defensive positions. The tactical display began to animate, showing the movement of ships and the exchange of weapons fire. What happened next defied everything the council members thought they knew about space warfare. The humans' response was immediate and overwhelming. What we had assumed were simple patrol vessels suddenly revealed themselves to be something far more advanced. Their ships began moving in ways that our computers said should be impossible. They accelerated and maneuvered with a speed and precision that made them almost impossible to target effectively. Representative Tlack of the Scientific Consortium spoke up. His multiple eye stalks focused intently on the display. What type of propulsion system allows for such maneuverability? We still don't know, Crix admitted. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was their weapons. The holographic battle continued to play out, and the assembled representatives watched in growing horror as the blue dots, human ships, began systematically destroying the red dots representing the Zeltharian fleet. Their weapons technology is unlike anything we've encountered. They fire projectiles at a significant percentage of light speed, but somehow these projectiles can change direction mid-flight. They also deploy something they call plasma lances that can cut through our strongest armor as if it were tissue paper. The display showed Zeltharian dreadnoughts, massive ships that had been the backbone of their empire's expansion, being carved apart by thin beams of energy that appeared and disappeared almost instantly. But perhaps most terrifying of all, Crix continued, his voice now barely audible, was their coordination. Every human ship moved as if it were part of a single organism. They anticipated our tactics before we implemented them, responded to our strategies before we could complete them, and seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. General Vractoas leaned forward aggressively. Surely your fleet managed some successful attacks? 1,500 ships cannot be destroyed without inflicting casualties on the enemy. Crix's expression became even more pained. That's what Admiral Garthok thought as well. After the first wave was decimated, he ordered our remaining forces to concentrate their fire on individual human vessels. If we could destroy their ships one at a time, we might still win through sheer numbers. The tactical display shifted to show the second phase of the battle. The remaining Zeltharian forces, now clearly diminished but still substantial, converged on smaller groups of human ships. For a brief moment, it seemed like the strategy might work. Our concentrated fire managed to overwhelm the defenses of several human vessels, and we actually destroyed 3 of their ships. Crix paused, his breathing heavy. We celebrated too early. The display suddenly erupted with new contacts. Dozens of blue dots appeared seemingly from nowhere, surrounding the Zeltharian fleets. More human ships arrived through some form of faster-than-light travel that our sensors couldn't detect until they were already in firing position. But these weren't just reinforcements. They were ships unlike anything we had seen before. Massive vessels that dwarfed even our dreadnoughts, armed with weapons that seemed to bend the very laws of physics. The chamber watched in stunned silence as the holographic battle reached its climax. The red dots representing the Zeltharian fleet began disappearing at an alarming rate, while the blue dots seemed to multiply and surround them from all directions. The battle lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes, Crix said, his voice now flat and emotionless. In that time, the humans destroyed or disabled every single ship in our attack fleet. Admiral Garthok's flagship was one of the last to fall, and his final transmission was a request for terms of surrender. Chancellor Vextar's massive form had gone completely still. And what terms did the humans offer? That, Crix replied, is perhaps the most disturbing part of this entire incident. Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared on the main communication screen of what remained of Admiral Garthok's command ship. The human looked surprisingly young for someone commanding such a devastating fleet, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold both intelligence and something else that made Crix's species instinctively uncomfortable, a complete lack of fear. Admiral Garthok, Chun said in perfect Zeltharian, her pronunciation indicating she had learned the language remarkably quickly. I am Admiral Sarah Chun of the Earth Defense Force. I understand you wish to discuss terms of surrender. Garthok's voice was hoarse from shouting orders during the battle. His once pristine uniform was torn and stained with the distinctive blue blood of his species. Admiral Chun, we formally request terms of surrender. Our fleet is disabled, and we are at your mercy. The human admiral studied him for a moment through the viewscreen. Admiral, before we discuss any terms, I need you to understand something very important. You came to our world uninvited and attacked us without provocation. You attempted to conquer our planet and enslave our people. Do you acknowledge this? Yes, we did. Garthok's admission was barely a whisper. Good. Honesty is important for what comes next. Chen's expression remained neutral, showing neither anger nor satisfaction. Here are our terms. All surviving Zeltharian military personnel will be treated according to the Geneva Conventions, which I'm transmitting to your computers now. You will receive medical care, adequate food and shelter, and you will not be tortured or abused in any way. The assembled council members listening to Crix's account seemed confused by this information. Most galactic civilizations had specific protocols for dealing with defeated enemies, usually involving some form of punishment or compensation. Representative Cheendal spoke up. Ambassador Crix, these Geneva Conventions, are they some form of human legal code regarding warfare? Yes, Crix replied. But they're unlike anything in our experience. The documents they transmitted detailed rules for treating prisoners of war with dignity and respect. It prohibits torture, requires adequate medical care, and even specifies nutritional requirements for different species. Chancellor Vextar's expression showed his confusion. They created rules to protect their enemies? Not just their enemies, Crix explained. The Geneva Conventions apply to all parties in a conflict. They limit what actions can be taken even by the winning side. They prohibit targeting civilian populations, destruction of cultural sites, and the use of certain weapons deemed unnecessarily cruel. The concept seemed to disturb many of the assembled representatives. Warfare among galactic civilizations typically followed the principle that might makes right. The idea of voluntarily limiting one's own military options was foreign to most species. Crix continued his account. Admiral Garthok asked what compensation the humans would require for the attack. Most civilizations would demand territorial concessions, resources, or some form of tribute. Admiral Chen's response was, he paused, searching for words, unexpected. The holographic display shifted to show the interior of Admiral Chen's command ship. The bridge was remarkably clean and organized, with crew members of various human ethnic backgrounds working at stations that seemed to blend advanced technology with practical functionality. Admiral Garthok, Chan had said, "We don't want your territory, your resources, or your money. What we want is much simpler and much more complex." "I don't understand," Garthok had replied. Chun stood from her command chair and approached the view screen. Behind her, Crix could see human officers working calmly at their stations, showing no signs of the battle fatigue that should have been evident after such an intense engagement. "We want you to go back to your people and tell them exactly what happened here. We want you to be completely honest about the outcome of this battle and about how your prisoners were treated. We want you to tell them that Earth is not interested in conquest or expansion, but we are absolutely committed to defending ourselves and our allies." The human admiral paused, seeming to consider her words carefully. "We also want you to deliver a message to your government and to any other civilizations that might be considering similar actions. The message is simple. We are willing to be friends with anyone who approaches us in peace. But if you come to our world as enemies, you will discover that humans can be far more dangerous than we appear." Admiral Garthok's confusion was evident even through the communication system. That's all? You're just going to let us go? After you and your crews receive medical treatment and have time to recover from the battle, yes. We'll provide you with ships capable of returning to Zeltharian space, along with complete records of this engagement and documentation of how your people were treated while in our custody. The Zeltharian admiral struggled to understand the human position. "But we attacked you. We attempted to conquer your world. By rights of warfare, you could execute us, enslave us, or demand massive compensation." Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly. "Admiral, can I ask you something? Do you have a family?" The unexpected question seemed to surprise Garthok. "Ah yes, a mate and 3 offspring. Do you love them?" "Of course. Would you die to protect them?" Without hesitation, Chen nodded. "That's exactly how we feel about our families, our friends, our world. You threatened something we would die to protect, so we fought with everything we had. But now that the threat is over, continuing to fight serves no purpose. Our goal was never to destroy you, it was to protect ourselves." The view screen showed Garthok struggling to process this information. His species' military culture was built around the concept of total victory and domination of defeated enemies. The human approach was completely alien to his understanding of warfare. "There is one more thing," Chen added. "We're going to assign some of our people to accompany you back to Zeltharian space. They're not guards or spies. They're diplomats and teachers. If your government is interested in establishing peaceful relations with Earth, our people are authorized to begin preliminary negotiations." "And if our government isn't interested in peace?" Garthok asked. Chen's expression became serious. "Then we'll respect that decision and leave you alone. But, Admiral, I need you to understand something. This battle should have taught you that humans are much more capable of defending themselves than your intelligence reports suggested. If another Zeltharian fleet attacks Earth or any of our allies, the response will be significantly more severe." Crix paused in his recounting to address the council directly. Admiral Garthok asked what she meant by more severe, and Admiral Chen's response was the most terrifying thing any of us heard during the entire encounter. The chamber fell silent, waiting for Crix to continue. She said, "Admiral, what you experienced today was our defensive capability. You attacked us, so we defended ourselves using purely defensive measures and tactics. If we are forced to take offensive action against threats to our people, you will discover that human defensive technology is nothing compared to what we can do when we're actively trying to destroy something." General Vractios made a scoffing sound. "Defensive measures? They destroyed 1,500 warships." "That was my reaction as well," Crix replied. Admiral Garthok asked the same question. Admiral Chun explained that every weapon system they used in the battle was designed for planetary defense. Their ships were optimized for protecting Earth and its orbital installations, not for attacking enemy territory. According to her, they have entirely different classes of vessels and weapons for offensive operations. The implications of this statement settled over the council like a heavy blanket. If the humans considered the destruction of an entire Zeltharian battle fleet to be a purely defensive action, what might they be capable of when actually attacking? Representative Tlakes Icestalks were moving in agitation. Did they provide any indication of the extent of their offensive capabilities? Admiral Chun was asked that exact question, Crix replied. Her response was that humanity had developed their military technology based on thousands of years of warfare among themselves. She said that human military history was so violent and destructive that they had been forced to create technologies capable of completely destroying their own civilization multiple times over. The chamber erupted in startled voices. The idea of a species developing technology specifically to destroy themselves was beyond the comprehension of most galactic civilizations. Chancellor Vextar called for order. Ambassador Crix, are you suggesting that humans developed weapons capable of destroying their own homeworld? According to Admiral Chun, yes. She said that before humans achieved spaceflight, they had already created weapons that could render their entire planet uninhabitable. She called them nuclear weapons and explained that the only reason humanity survived their own technological development was that they eventually learned to control themselves. But why would any species create such things? Asked Representative Chindal, her harmonious voice carrying a note of horror. Crix accessed another section of his datapad. Admiral Chun provided Admiral Garthok with historical records to demonstrate her point. According to these records, humans fought 2 massive global wars using increasingly destructive technology. The second of these wars ended when they used their nuclear weapons to destroy 2 of their own cities. The silence that followed was profound. The concept of a species using weapons of mass destruction against themselves was virtually unimaginable to most galactic civilizations. She explained, Crix continued, that humans learned from this experience that unlimited warfare leads to mutual destruction. So they developed rules and traditions to limit conflict while simultaneously developing even more powerful defensive technologies to prevent anyone from ever threatening them with extinction again. General Vractios leaned forward aggressively. Are you telling this council that humans possess weapons capable of planetary destruction? Based on our observations during the battle, Crix replied carefully, I believe humans possess weapons capable of far more than planetary destruction. Some of the energy readings our sensors detected during the engagement suggested power outputs that could theoretically affect stellar masses. The chamber fell into chaos as representatives began talking among themselves in rising voices. The idea of a species possessing weapons capable of affecting stars was beyond anything in known galactic civilization. Chancellor Vextar stood, his massive form commanding immediate attention. Order! We will have order in this chamber. The noise gradually subsided. Ambassador Crix, you will continue your account of events. We need to understand the full scope of this situation. Crix nodded, though his hands were shaking noticeably. After explaining their position on warfare and their capabilities, Admiral Chun asked Admiral Garthok if he had any questions before they began the prisoner transfer process. Admiral Garthok asked the question that I think was on all of our minds, Crix continued. He asked why humans were sharing this information with us. Why were they being so open about their capabilities and their intentions? And what was Admiral Chen's response? She said that humans had learned something important from their own history. Secret weapons and hidden capabilities lead to misunderstandings, and misunderstandings lead to unnecessary wars. She said that humans would rather have potential enemies understand exactly what they were capable of, so that everyone could make informed decisions about whether conflict was really worth the cost. The concept was radically different from standard galactic military doctrine, which emphasized deception and surprise as key elements of successful warfare. She also said something else that I found deeply disturbing, Crix added. She said that humans had studied the military capabilities of every known galactic civilization, and they had developed specific defensive strategies for each one. According to her, the destruction of our fleet was not a matter of superior technology alone. They had studied Zeltharian military doctrine and had prepared countermeasures specifically designed to defeat our tactics. Representative Tlack spoke up again. How could they have studied our military capabilities? Humans have only been in contact with galactic civilization for 3 years. That, Crix replied, is perhaps the most disturbing revelation of all. Admiral Chun had paused at Admiral Garthok's question about how humans had studied galactic military capabilities. Her expression had become thoughtful, almost contemplative, as she considered her response. Admiral Garthok, she had said finally, I think there's something about human nature that you need to understand before you return to your people. When humans encounter something new, whether it's a technology, a species, or a potential threat, We study it obsessively. We analyze every possible angle, consider every potential outcome, and prepare for every conceivable scenario. She had activated a display screen behind her, showing what appeared to be a vast database of information. When the first galactic species made contact with Earth 3 years ago, we began immediately collecting and analyzing every piece of information we could gather about galactic civilization. Trade records, cultural exchanges, scientific publications, historical documents, everything. Admiral Garthok's image on the screen had shown his growing confusion. But surely such an analysis would take decades to complete? For most species, yes, Chen had agreed. But humans have something that gives us an advantage in this type of analysis. We have artificial intelligence systems specifically designed to process and correlate vast amounts of information at speeds that biological minds cannot match. Crix paused in his recounting to address the council. When Admiral Chen mentioned artificial intelligence, our translator systems struggled with the concept. Most galactic civilizations have experimented with automated systems, but what the humans described was far more advanced than anything in our experience. Representative Tlakes Istalks focused intently on Crix. Are you suggesting that humans have created artificial minds capable of independent thought? According to Admiral Chen, yes, Crix replied. She explained that humans began developing artificial intelligence centuries before they achieved spaceflight. By the time they made contact with galactic civilization, their AI systems had become sophisticated enough to analyze the entire history and culture of our galaxy within a matter of months. The implications sent ripples of unease through the chamber. Artificial intelligence was considered one of the most dangerous technologies in galactic civilization. Most species that had attempted to create truly intelligent machines had faced catastrophic consequences when those machines turned against their creators. Chancellor Vextar leaned forward. Did the humans indicate how they avoided the typical problems associated with artificial intelligence development? Admiral Chen addressed that exact concern, Crix said, consulting his datapad. Admiral Garthok asked the same question. Chen explained that humans had indeed experienced problems with artificial intelligence in their early development, but they had solved those problems through what she called aligned development. What does that mean? Asked Representative Qindao. According to Chen, humans developed their artificial intelligence systems alongside human consciousness rather than as replacements for it. Their AI systems are designed to enhance human capabilities, not to replace human decision-making. She said that every major decision made by human civilization requires both artificial intelligence analysis and human judgment. General Vractios made a skeptical sound. How can they be certain their machines won't eventually rebel? Chun said that human AI systems are fundamentally different from what most species attempt to create. Instead of trying to make machines that think like humans, they created machines that think in ways that complement human thought processes. The machines handle data analysis, pattern recognition, and scenario modeling, while humans handle ethical decisions, creative solutions, and value judgments. Crix activated his own holographic display, showing a diagram that had been transmitted during the exchange. Chun provided Admiral Garthok with an example of how this partnership works. When analyzing galactic military capabilities, the AI systems processed millions of battle records, tactical manuals, and technological specifications. They identified patterns, weaknesses, and optimal countermeasures for every known military doctrine. But, Crix continued, the human commanders made all the actual decisions about how to use that information. The machines could tell them the most effective way to destroy a Zeltharian fleet, but the humans decided whether to use that knowledge, how much force to apply, and what to do with prisoners afterward. The concept was fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. The idea of biological and artificial intelligence working in perfect harmony was appealing, but the potential for such a partnership to dominate other civilizations was obvious. Admiral Chun provided another example that I found particularly disturbing, Crix said. She mentioned that their AI systems had analyzed not just our military capabilities, but also our psychology, our decision-making patterns, and our likely responses to various scenarios. What do you mean? Asked Chancellor Vextar. According to Chen, their computers had predicted with 97% accuracy that the Zeltharian Empire would eventually attempt to attack Earth. They had identified our species' expansion patterns, our resource needs, and our historical tendency to underestimate opponents. The AI systems had even predicted approximately when the attack would occur and what form it would take. The chamber fell silent as the full implications of this statement settled over the assembled representatives. If humans could predict the military actions of galactic civilizations with such accuracy, it meant that every species in the galaxy was potentially transparent to human analysis. But that wasn't the most disturbing part, Crix continued. Admiral Chun explained that Earth's AI systems had developed detailed response plans for potential conflicts with every major galactic civilization. They know exactly how to defeat the Carnian warlords' shock tactics, how to counter the Scientific Consortium's technological advantages, and how to neutralize the Harmony Collective's diplomatic immunity protocols. General Vractios stood abruptly. Are you telling this council that humans have developed specific plans to attack every member of galactic civilization? Not attack plans, Crix corrected. Defense plans. Admiral Chun was very specific about this distinction. She said that every scenario their AI systems had developed was based on defending Earth and its allies from aggression, not on launching unprovoked attacks. But the capability would be the same, General Vractios pointed out. Yes, Crix admitted. The capability would be the same. Representative Cheendal's voice carried a note of hope. But surely humans must understand that such capabilities would make other species nervous about establishing peaceful relations? Admiral Chun addressed that concern as well, Crix replied. She said that humans had faced the same dilemma in their own history. When they developed weapons capable of destroying their own civilization, they had to find ways to convince other humans that those weapons would only be used defensively. Crix accessed another section of his datapad. Chin explained that humans had developed what they call transparency protocols to address this issue. They are willing to share detailed information about their defensive capabilities and their decision-making processes with any species that approaches them peacefully. What kind of information? Asked Representative Tlack. According to Chan, they will provide complete technical specifications for their defensive systems, detailed explanations of their military doctrine, and even access to their AI analysis systems for species that want to verify human intentions. The offer was unprecedented in galactic history. No civilization had ever volunteered to share its military secrets with potential rivals. But, Crix continued, there are conditions for accessing this information. Any species that wants to establish full diplomatic relations with Earth must agree to similar transparency protocols. They must share their own military capabilities and submit to analysis by human AI systems. General Vractios laughed harshly. So humans want to know everything about our military capabilities while maintaining the option to destroy us all if they choose to? That's essentially what Admiral Garthok said, Crix replied. Admiral Chen's response was that humans understand the apparent contradiction, but they believe it's the only way to prevent the kind of misunderstandings that lead to unnecessary wars. Crix activated another display, showing what appeared to be a complex flowchart. Chun provided this diagram to explain human strategic thinking. According to their analysis, there are only 3 possible outcomes when advanced civilizations encounter each other: mutual cooperation, mutual destruction, or domination of the weaker by the stronger. Humans believe that cooperation is only possible when both parties have complete information about each other's capabilities and intentions. Without that information, fear and suspicion lead to conflict, and conflict between advanced civilizations leads to destruction. Chancellor Vextar studied the diagram carefully. And if one party refuses to share information, then humans assume that party has hostile intentions and respond accordingly, Crix said. Admiral Chun was very clear about this point. Earth is willing to be completely transparent with peaceful civilizations, but they will not share information with potential enemies. How do they determine who qualifies as a potential enemy? Asked Representative Cheendal. According to Chun, any civilization that attacks Earth or its allies automatically qualifies. Any civilization that refuses transparency protocols while maintaining military forces capable of threatening Earth also qualifies. And any civilization that has a history of unprovoked aggression against other species qualifies. The criteria were logical but troubling. Most galactic civilizations had some history of military expansion, and few were willing to share complete information about their defensive capabilities. Admiral Garthok asked what would happen to civilizations that fell into the potential enemy category. Crix continued. Admiral Chun said that Earth would not attack them preemptively, but would maintain defensive measures adequate to counter any threat they might pose. What kind of defensive measures? Asked General Vractius. Chun didn't provide specifics, but she did say something that I found deeply unsettling. She said that Earth's defensive perimeter was not limited to their own solar system. Crix paused to let that statement sink in before continuing. Admiral Garthok asked what she meant, and Chun explained that humanity had established what they call early warning systems throughout the galaxy. These systems monitor the military activities of potentially hostile civilizations and provide Earth with advance notice of any threatening developments. Are you saying that humans have been spying on galactic civilization? Asked Representative Tlack. According to Chan, they prefer the term monitoring, Crix replied. She said that humans had learned from their own history that the best way to prevent wars is to detect them before they start. Their monitoring systems identify potential conflicts early enough for diplomatic intervention to be effective. And if diplomatic intervention fails? Asked Chancellor Vextar. Then, Earth responds with what Chun called proportional defensive action. She said that the destruction of our fleet was an example of minimal proportional response because we had only threatened Earth itself. Crix's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. She said that if we had actually managed to harm human civilians or damage Earth's biosphere, their response would have been to eliminate not just our attacking fleet, but our entire military infrastructure throughout the galaxy. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. The idea that humans could project military force throughout the entire galaxy was beyond anything most civilizations could imagine. Order! Chancellor Vextar's voice cut through the noise. Ambassador Crix, are you telling this council that humans claim the ability to attack targets anywhere in the galaxy? According to Admiral Chun, yes. She said that human defensive doctrine requires the ability to neutralize threats regardless of their location. If a civilization attacks Earth, humanity must be able to ensure that civilization cannot attack again. But how is such capability possible? Asked Representative Tlack. Even our most advanced civilizations require months to move military forces between star systems. Admiral Chun explained that humans had developed what they call instantaneous response systems, Crix replied. She wouldn't provide technical details, but she did say that these systems allow Earth to project defensive force to any location in the galaxy within minutes of detecting a threat. The implications were staggering. If humans possessed faster-than-light military capability that advanced, they could potentially dominate the entire galaxy without any civilization being able to mount an effective defense. Admiral Garthok asked the obvious question. Crix continue. Admiral Garthok had asked the question that was burning in every mind. Admiral Chun, if humans possess such overwhelming military advantages, why haven't you simply conquered the galaxy already? The human admiral had smiled at the question, an expression that Crix found both reassuring and unsettling. Admiral Garthok, that question reveals a fundamental difference between human thinking and the thinking of most galactic civilizations. You assume that superior military capability naturally leads to conquest and domination. Humans learned long ago that conquest is ultimately self-defeating. She had gestured to the tactical display showing the wreckage of the Zeltharian fleet. Look at what happened here today. We destroyed your entire attack force, captured thousands of your people, and demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority. By traditional galactic standards, this victory should give us the right to claim Zeltharian territory, resources, and population as spoils of war. But what would we actually gain from such conquest? Chun had continued. Territory we don't need, resources we can acquire through trade, and a population that would resist our rule for generations. Conquest would cost us more than it would benefit us, while making us enemies throughout the galaxy. Admiral Garthok had struggled to understand the human perspective. But surely the strategic advantages of controlling additional star systems would outweigh the costs? Admiral, let me explain something about human strategic thinking, Chun had replied. Our AI systems have analyzed every major galactic empire in history. Do you know what they discovered? What? Every single empire that expanded through military conquest eventually collapsed under the weight of maintaining that expansion. Military conquest creates resistance, resistance requires more military force to suppress, and eventually the cost of suppression exceeds the benefits of conquest. Crix paused in his recounting to address the council. Admiral Chun provided historical data to support her argument. According to human analysis, The average lifespan of a conquest-based galactic empire is approximately 400 standard years before internal rebellions and external pressures cause complete collapse. Representative Tlakes Istalks moved thoughtfully. Their analysis may be correct, but it doesn't explain why humans haven't used their advantages to establish a more sustainable form of galactic control. That's exactly what Admiral Garthok asked, Crix replied. Admiral Chen's response was enlightening. She said that humans had experimented with every possible form of large-scale organization during their own planetary history, and they had discovered that the most stable and prosperous societies were those based on voluntary cooperation rather than imposed control. Crix activated another holographic display showing a complex sociological model. Chun provided this analysis of human civilization development. According to their records, humans tried conquest-based empires, totalitarian control systems, and various forms of authoritarian rule. All of these systems eventually failed, often catastrophically. What they discovered, Crix continued, was that voluntary cooperation between autonomous groups produced better outcomes for everyone involved than any form of imposed control. Their current global civilization is based on autonomous regions that cooperate because cooperation benefits them, not because they are forced to cooperate by a superior power. Chancellor Vextar leaned forward. Are you suggesting that humans want to apply this same principle to galactic civilization? According to Admiral Chun, yes, Crix replied. She said that Earth's long-term goal is to help establish a galactic civilization based on voluntary cooperation between autonomous species. They believe this would be more stable and prosperous than the current system of competing empires and territorial disputes. General Vractios made a scoffing sound. Voluntary cooperation only works when all parties are equals. If humans possess overwhelming military advantages, how can other species be considered their equals? Admiral Garthok raised the same objection, Crix said. Admiral Chen's response was that humans don't want to be the dominant power in galactic civilization. They want to share their technological advantages with other species so that everyone can achieve similar capabilities. The statement sent shockwaves through the chamber. The idea of voluntarily sharing advanced military technology with potential rivals was completely alien to galactic thinking. Chen explained, Crix continued, that humans believe technological inequality is the root cause of most galactic conflicts. When one civilization possesses significant advantages over another, the temptation for the stronger to exploit the weaker becomes almost irresistible. But by sharing technology, humans hope to eliminate those inequalities and create a situation where no single civilization can dominate the others through force. Representative Qindao spoke up. Surely humans must understand that sharing their technology would eliminate their own strategic advantages? Admiral Chan addressed that concern directly, Crix replied. She said that humans had learned from their own history that trying to maintain permanent technological advantages is ultimately futile. Other civilizations will eventually develop similar capabilities, and, in the meantime, the attempt to maintain superiority creates fear and resentment that leads to conflict. She said that humans would rather share their advantages voluntarily while building positive relationships than have other species develop similar capabilities while viewing Earth as an enemy. Crix consulted his datapad again. Chun provided an example from human history to illustrate her point. Apparently, humans once developed weapons called nuclear bombs that gave certain human nations overwhelming advantages over others. The nations with these weapons tried to prevent others from developing them, but eventually the technology spread anyway. The result was decades of tension and fear, with multiple near-catastrophic conflicts. According to Chen, humans learned that trying to maintain permanent superiority is not only impossible but counterproductive. So what specifically are humans offering? Asked Chancellor Vextar. According to Admiral Chen, Earth is prepared to share 3 categories of technology with any civilization that agrees to transparency protocols and peaceful cooperation, Crix replied. First, defensive technologies that would allow other species to protect themselves from aggression. Second, AI systems that would help other civilizations analyze complex problems and develop better solutions. Third, what Chun called abundance technologies that would allow civilizations to meet their resource needs without competing with each other. The offers were unprecedented in galactic history. No civilization had ever voluntarily shared such advanced technologies with potential rivals. But, Crix continued, there are strict conditions for accessing these technologies. Any civilization that receives human technology must agree to use it only for defensive purposes and must submit to ongoing monitoring to ensure compliance. General Vractius leaned forward aggressively. So humans want to create a galaxy where every civilization is dependent on Earth for their most advanced technologies? Admiral Garthok asked the same question, Crix replied. Admiral Chen's response was that the technologies would be shared freely, with complete technical specifications and manufacturing instructions. The goal is not to create dependence, but to ensure that no civilization can use human-provided technology for aggressive purposes. She explained that the monitoring systems would be mutual. Any civilization receiving human technology would also gain access to monitoring systems that could observe Earth's military activities. The goal is complete transparency between all participating civilizations. Representative Tlakes Istalks moved thoughtfully. This level of transparency would effectively eliminate the possibility of secret military development by any participating civilization. Exactly, Crix confirmed. According to Chun, humans believe that secret weapons development is the primary cause of arms races, and arms races are the primary cause of galactic wars. By making military development transparent, they hope to eliminate both problems. But what happens to civilizations that refuse to participate in this transparency system? Asked Representative Qindao. Admiral Chun was very clear about that, Crix replied. Non-participating civilizations would not be attacked or punished, but they would be isolated from the technological benefits of cooperation. They would also be subject to continued monitoring by Earth's defense systems. She said that humans expect most civilizations to eventually choose to participate once they see the benefits that cooperative civilizations achieve. But she also said that Earth would be prepared to defend against any threats from non-participating civilizations indefinitely. Chancellor Vextar studied the holographic displays thoughtfully. Ambassador Crix, did Admiral Chin provide any timeline for implementing this vision of galactic cooperation? She said that the process would take several generations to complete, Crix replied. Human planners estimate that establishing full galactic cooperation will require approximately 200 standard years. But they've already begun the first phase, which involves establishing formal diplomatic relations with every major galactic civilization. They want to offer transparency protocols and technology-sharing agreements to all council members within the next 10 standard years. Crix paused before delivering what he considered the most important part of Admiral Chen's message. Admiral Chun specifically requested that I relay an invitation to this council. Earth would like to send a diplomatic mission to the galactic capital to present their proposals formally and answer any questions council members might have. But she also delivered a warning, Crix continued, his voice growing serious. She said that Earth's patience for establishing peaceful relations is not unlimited. If any galactic civilization launches unprovoked attacks on Earth or its allies during the next 50 years, humanity will assume that galactic civilization is not ready for peaceful cooperation. What would happen in that case? Asked General Vractius. According to Admiral Chen, Earth would abandon the cooperation approach and would instead implement what she called imposed peace. She said that humans would use their technological advantages to forcibly prevent galactic civilizations from attacking each other or threatening Earth. The implications were clear and terrifying. If humanity lost patience with diplomatic approaches, they possessed the capability to impose their will on the entire galaxy. She said that imposed peace would be much less pleasant for everyone involved than voluntary cooperation, Crix concluded. According to human analysis, imposed peace would require constant monitoring, strict limitations on military development, and immediate intervention in any conflicts between galactic civilizations. Basically, Earth would become the galaxy's police force, with the authority to intervene in any situation they deemed threatening to galactic stability. Representative Qindao's voice carried a note of hope. But they would prefer voluntary cooperation? Yes, Crix replied. Admiral Chun emphasized multiple times that Earth's strong preference is for autonomous civilizations choosing to cooperate because cooperation benefits them. She said that humans understand the value of freedom and independence, and they don't want to impose their will on others unless absolutely necessary for preventing wars. Chancellor Vextar stood slowly, his massive form commanding attention from every representative in the chamber. Ambassador Crix, you have provided this council with the most significant intelligence briefing in our recorded history. The implications of everything you have reported will require extensive analysis and discussion. But before we continue, I must ask, what is your personal assessment of human intentions and capabilities? Crix was quiet for a long moment before responding. Chancellor, based on everything I observed during our encounter with Earth's forces, I believe humans possess exactly the capabilities they claim to possess. Their technology is far more advanced than anything in known galactic civilization. Their strategic planning is superior to our best military minds, and their ability to project force throughout the galaxy appears to be genuine. As for their intentions, Crix continued, I believe they are sincere about preferring cooperation to conquest. Everything they did during and after the battle supported their stated goal of defending themselves while minimizing unnecessary casualties. But, Crix added, his voice growing grave, I also believe that humans will do exactly what they threaten to do if peaceful cooperation fails. They have the capability to impose their will on the entire galaxy, and I believe they will use that capability if they determine it is necessary. The chamber fell silent as every representative contemplated the enormity of the situation they faced. Humanity had announced itself as a potential partner or protector, but also as an overwhelmingly powerful force that could reshape galactic civilization according to its own vision. There is one more thing, Crix said quietly. Something that Admiral Chun told Admiral Garthok in their final communication. The final communication between Admiral Chun and Admiral Garthok had taken place just before the Zeltharian survivors were transferred to human medical facilities. Garthok, still struggling to understand the human approach to warfare and diplomacy, had asked one last question. Admiral Chun, he had said, I need to ask something for my own understanding. You could have destroyed our entire fleet without taking any prisoners. You could have eliminated every trace of our attack and left our empire wondering what happened to us. Why did you choose to let us survive to report what happened here? Admiral Chun had paused thoughtfully before answering. Admiral, let me tell you something about human nature that might help you understand our decision. Humans have a saying, the best victories are won without fighting. What happened here today was not really a victory for us. How can you say that? Garthok had asked, confused. You defeated a superior force with minimal casualties. Admiral, we didn't want to fight you at all, Chun had replied. If we had been able to convince your empire that attacking Earth was a mistake before you launched your fleet, everyone would have been better off. Your people would still be alive, your ships would still be intact, and we wouldn't have had to reveal our defensive capabilities to the galaxy. Admiral Chun had activated a display showing the tactical situation around Earth. The ideal outcome from our perspective would have been for your intelligence reports to accurately assess our capabilities, for your military leaders to conclude that attacking us would be too costly, and for your empire to approach us for peaceful trade and diplomacy instead. But that didn't happen because we failed to communicate our capabilities clearly enough to prevent this misunderstanding. From our point of view, this battle represents a failure of diplomacy. Crix paused in his recounting to address the council directly. Admiral Chen's perspective on the battle was unlike anything in our military experience. She viewed the destruction of our fleet not as a victory to be celebrated, but as a communication failure to be corrected. Representative Qingdao leaned forward. Are you suggesting that humans blame themselves for the conflict? Partially, yes, Crix replied. Admiral Chen explained that humans take responsibility for ensuring that other civilizations understand Earth's capabilities, and intentions clearly enough to make informed decisions about whether to approach them peacefully or aggressively. She said that the battle could have been avoided if Earth had done a better job of demonstrating their defensive capabilities before we decided to attack. Our empire made a strategic decision based on incomplete information, and Chun felt that Earth bore some responsibility for not providing better information. General Vractios made a skeptical sound. That's an unusual perspective for the winning side of a military engagement. Admiral Garthok made the same observation, Crix continued. Admiral Chen's response was that humans had learned from their own history that celebrating military victories encourages more conflicts. She said that every battle, even a defensive victory, represents a failure of civilization to solve problems peacefully. Crix accessed another section of his datapad. Chun told Admiral Garthok about something from human history called the Pyrrhic victory, a military win that costs so much that it might as well be a defeat. She said that humans had learned to view all military conflicts as Pyrrhic victories because they always cost more than their worth. According to Chen, The resources Earth had to devote to defending against our attack could have been used to solve problems like disease, poverty, or environmental damage. The time their military spent preparing for and fighting the battle could have been used for scientific research or cultural development. She said that every minute humans spend on military activities is a minute they can't spend on building a better civilization. The concept was revolutionary. Most galactic civilizations viewed military strength as essential for civilization development, not as a distraction from it. Chancellor Vextar spoke up. Did Admiral Chun provide any indication of how humans plan to reduce the need for military preparedness? That's exactly what Admiral Garthok asked, Crix replied. Admiral Chun explained that Earth's entire diplomatic strategy is designed to eliminate the conditions that make military conflicts necessary. Crix activated a holographic display showing a complex diagram. Chun provided this chart showing what humans call the conflict prevention cycle. According to their analysis, most galactic conflicts are caused by competition for scarce resources, territorial disputes, technological inequalities, or communication failures. Earth's diplomatic strategy addresses each of these root causes directly. Technology sharing eliminates technological inequalities, abundance technologies reduce resource competition, transparency protocols prevent communication failures, and cooperative frameworks eliminate the need for territorial expansion. Representative Tlacus Istalks moved thoughtfully. This approach assumes that all galactic civilizations are rational actors who will choose cooperation when it benefits them. But what about species that are inherently aggressive or expansionist? Admiral Chun acknowledged that concern, Crix replied. She said that human analysis had identified several galactic civilizations that might not respond to cooperative approaches. For these civilizations, Earth has developed what she called containment strategies. What kind of containment? Asked General Vractius. According to Chen, Earth would establish defensive perimeters around aggressive civilizations and would prevent them from expanding beyond their current territories. They wouldn't attack these civilizations directly, but they would make expansion impossible by intercepting any military forces that tried to move beyond established boundaries. She said that most aggressive civilizations would eventually abandon expansionist policies when they realized that expansion was impossible. The energy and resources required for constant military preparation without any possibility of success would eventually force them to focus on internal development instead. And if they don't abandon aggressive policies? Asked Chancellor Vextar. Then they would remain contained indefinitely, Crix replied. Chun said that Earth was prepared to maintain defensive containment for as long as necessary, even if that meant centuries or millennia. The scope of human strategic planning was staggering. Most galactic civilizations planned military operations in terms of years or decades. Earth was apparently prepared to maintain strategic policies for thousands of years. Admiral Chun made another statement that I found deeply unsettling, Crix continued. She said that Earth's current military capabilities were not their maximum potential. According to her, humans are still developing more advanced technologies, and their defensive capabilities will continue to improve over time. She said that Earth's goal is to maintain permanent technological superiority over any potential threats, not just current ones. Their research and development programs are designed to stay ahead of any advances that other civilizations might develop. Representative Tlack spoke up again. Did she provide any indication of the direction of human technological development? She mentioned several areas, Crix replied, consulting his datapad. Advanced AI systems that can predict galactic events years in advance, faster-than-light communication technologies that would allow instantaneous coordination across the galaxy, and what she called reality manipulation systems that could alter the physical laws governing specific regions of space. The chamber fell silent as representatives struggled to comprehend technologies that advanced. The idea of altering physical laws was beyond the theoretical frameworks of most galactic civilizations. But perhaps most disturbing of all, Crix continued, Admiral Chin mentioned that humans were developing technologies that could influence the development of other civilizations directly. She called them evolutionary guidance systems that could accelerate the social and technological development of cooperative civilizations. What do you mean by evolutionary guidance? Asked Representative Cheendal. According to Chan, these systems could help civilizations overcome internal conflicts, develop more effective forms of government, and accelerate their scientific progress. She said that cooperative civilizations could potentially advance thousands of years of normal development in just decades with human assistance. The offer was incredibly appealing and deeply threatening at the same time. The promise of accelerated development was tempting, but the idea of human influence over civilization development was concerning. Admiral Garthok asked whether these evolutionary guidance systems could be used to control other civilizations. Crix continued. Admiral Chen's response was that the systems could theoretically be used that way, but that doing so would violate fundamental human principles about the value of free will and autonomous development. She said that humans would rather have independent allies than controlled subjects, because independent allies are more creative, more resilient, and more valuable as partners in long-term projects. Chancellor Vextar leaned back in his massive chair. Ambassador Crix, in your final assessment, do you believe that humanity represents an opportunity or a threat to galactic civilization? Crix was quiet for a long moment, considering his words carefully. Chancellor, I believe that humanity represents both the greatest opportunity and the greatest threat in galactic history. They offer technologies and knowledge that could solve most of the problems that have plagued our civilizations for millennia. Disease, poverty, resource scarcity, territorial conflicts. All of these could become things of the past if we accept human partnership. But, Crix continued, they also possess the capability to reshape galactic civilization according to their own vision, whether we agree with that vision or not. They are powerful enough to impose their will on everyone if they choose to do so. The question we face is not whether humans can be trusted with such power. They already have it, and nothing we do can change that. The question is whether we choose to work with them as partners or force them to treat us as potential threats. General Vractios stood abruptly. Are you suggesting that this council should simply submit to human demands? I'm suggesting, Crix replied calmly, that we should carefully consider what humans are actually demanding. They want transparency, cooperation, and peaceful resolution of conflicts. They're offering to share technologies that would benefit everyone and to help establish a more stable and prosperous galactic civilization. If we refuse these offers, we won't prevent humans from influencing galactic civilization. We'll just ensure that their influence takes the form of imposed peace rather than voluntary cooperation. Representative Cheendal's voice carried a note of hope. But if we accept their offers, we could help shape the form that galactic cooperation takes? According to Admiral Chun, yes, Crix replied. She emphasized that Earth wants input from all galactic civilizations about how cooperative frameworks should be structured. They don't want to impose human solutions on non-human problems. But they also made it clear that some form of galactic cooperation will be established, whether through voluntary agreements or imposed peace. The choice they're offering us is not whether to accept human influence, but how to make that influence as beneficial as possible for everyone involved. Chancellor Vextar stood slowly, his massive form commanding attention from every representative in the chamber. Council members, we have heard Ambassador Crix's complete account of the encounter between the Zeltharian Empire and Earth's forces. We have learned of humanity's capabilities, intentions, and proposals for galactic civilization. This information will require extensive analysis and discussion among our member civilizations. I propose that we establish a special committee to study human proposals and develop recommendations for how this council should respond. But before we adjourn, Chancellor Vextar continued, I want to make one thing absolutely clear to every representative present. The information shared in this session is of the highest classification level. The stability of galactic civilization may depend on how carefully we handle our response to humanity's emergence as a galactic power. We are facing the most significant challenge in our recorded history. How we respond will determine whether galactic civilization enters a new age of cooperation and prosperity, or whether we find ourselves subject to imposed peace under human supervision. Choose your words and actions carefully, Council members. The future of every species in the galaxy may depend on the decisions we make in the coming months. As representatives began filing out of the chamber, discussing the revelations in hushed tones, Crix remained at his station, staring at the holographic displays that still showed the tactical aftermath of humanity's first demonstration of power to galactic civilization. The galaxy would never be the same again. The only question now was whether that change would come through partnership or conquest. And, deep down, Crix suspected that the choice was entirely in the hands of galactic civilization itself. Humans had made their capabilities and intentions clear. Now it was up to everyone else to decide how to respond to the new reality of human power in the galaxy. The age of humanity had begun, and there was no going back.